So, for those of you who follow the channel, you may know that I talk a lot about Linux on this channel. But today, I'm not going to be talking about Linux. I'm going to be talking about Windows. And specifically, I'm going to be revisiting Windows 8. So now, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while now, because I was actually one of the very few people that actually used Windows 8. Funny enough, I remember actually liking it. Now, to be clear, I was a kid back then. So that got me thinking, if I revisited it today, would I think of it the same way? Keep watching to find out. So now, I know when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I said no more opinion-based content. And as you may know, as a Linux user, I do definitely have a bias here, but I thought that this would be a great opportunity to kind of look beyond my bias for once. I know that a year after the release of Windows 8, which was in 2012, Microsoft came out with Windows 8.1, which is kind of a major revision to Windows 8. In this video, I'm going to be installing the original Windows 8. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so now I'm in my virtual machine manager, and what I'm going to do is create a new virtual machine. I'm going to call it Windows 8. There we go, Windows 8 64-bit. That's exactly what I want. And I'm going to be generous with the RAM just to maximize performance. Let's create the virtual hard disk. I think 40 gigabytes is fine. Now there's some settings I need to change though, especially in system. I'm going to uncheck floppy and then move the hard disk to the top of the boot order. And I'm going to give it 2 cores, change the paravirtualization interface to KVM, again to maximize performance. And I'll enable 3D acceleration and just jack up the video memory all the way to the max. Again, this is all to maximize performance. And now I'm going to come to my virtual optical drive and then add the Windows 8 ISO. And I think that's pretty much it. So I'll hit OK and start it up. And I'm gonna just select my language and click install now. Okay, and now this is actually gonna demand a product key. As you can see, there's no option to skip the product key. Luckily I have a product key, so I will go punch that in real quick. Pardon me while I do that. And now I will accept the license terms, and I need to install Windows only, and I'm going to install it to this drive. I noticed that the installer is a little bit different from the one in Windows 10 and 11, but not too much so. But anyway, I'll go let this install. So now this will take a while, so I'll speed this up. And one thing I actually did love about the setup process of Windows 8 is that it did give you a personalization option right out of the gate. Obviously not as in-depth as on Linux, but hey, it was something. You know, I kind of like this burgundy color scheme, so let's go with that. And I'll just call this Windows 8, and then hit next. Okay, let's see this. Express settings. If you choose Express settings, your PC will occasionally send info to Microsoft. Just that statement alone suggests that I should use Customize. And generally, I would not turn on sharing between computers on Windows unless you actually need it. It's just another security hole that's not necessary for most people. This is actually the last version of Windows that actually allowed you control over your updates. I actually do wonder what happens if I don't set up Windows Update. This is fine because we're in a virtual machine. Get device drivers, apps, and info for new devices. You know what, I'll turn that on. Turn on Windows Smart Screen, yeah. Turn on Internet Explorer Smart Screen, back when we had Internet Explorer. Here, send a do not track request. Send Microsoft info to help make Windows and apps better. I wouldn't really trust that. I'm gonna leave all these off. You know, I think all this is fine. I am kind of curious what this is, because I don't remember everything about Windows 8 since I was a kid when I used it, after all. And you know what? I'm not gonna sign into a Microsoft account. Back when we had this convenient sign in without a Microsoft account option. And of course, it's still gonna try to get me to sign into a Microsoft account, but for now I'll just use a local account. You know what, I do actually want to feature the Windows Store in this video, so in that case I will actually sign into a Microsoft account, but maybe once I get VMware Tools installed so I can copy and paste between these VMs. I'll set up my username, password, and I'm not gonna do a password int. Oh, well, in that case I'll just make it a space. Back when they introduced one of the things that I don't like about Windows, this initial account setup waiting screen for first-time sign-ins. But I did love how it kind of showed you how to find the start menu. I thought that was kind of cool, first time I used this. Well, actually, we're ready surprisingly quickly. Now, this is before Microsoft discovered that you can't remove the start menu icon from the taskbar and expect people to be okay with that, which maybe that's why Windows 8.1 was a free upgrade. I personally was fine with that, but let's move the mouse into the corner. And by the way, I'll show you what I just did. I just moved the mouse into the corner up here, and then I got to this menu where I could go into the start menu, and then that's what it looked like. I'm using trackpad scrolling to scroll through it. Now this is more meant to be easier to use on touchscreen devices, like Microsoft's new Surface tablets, but it did not translate well to the millions of people that still used traditional keyboards and mice. I mean, now that I think about it, on a laptop I guess it's not so bad because you do have your trackpad scrolling from side to side. But I remember with the mouse I actually had to click on this and then drag it. I thought this is cool as a kid. And I do like the full screen start menu, I'm not gonna lie. The concept of that, like even today, my desktop environment, GNOME, does have a similar thing. But for now, enough talk. I'm gonna focus on getting my virtual machine drivers installed. Pardon me while I do that. I remember all these old icons from Windows 7. Oh, back when this is called computer. I know in Windows 8.1 they changed it to this PC. But anyway, I'm gonna get in my CD drive and click on the VirtualBox guest editions. And there's the old user account control prompt. That was pre-Windows 10. But anyway, let's just go through this real quick. Yeah, I trust software from Oracle Corporation, or the corporation that made my virtual machine software, and we'll reboot the PC. Let's log back in. Now we gotta go up to settings. Oh, okay, it looks like my display size adapted automatically. So now we got everything here. We got network, volume, notifications, power, and that's where you go to shut down your PC. And this is where you could access the control panel and personalization options. And if you wanted to get the full PC settings, you have to click Change PC Settings. So if you're on the desktop and you want to shut down your PC, you had to go up to the corner here, click on Settings, then Power, then Shut Down. Not very intuitive, but I figured it out. And back then I did think this was cool because I was a kid. But now I realize that this is not really the most efficient way to use a computer. But anyway, let's go click on Change PC Settings. Actually, I forgot that you could also access the start menu by moving your mouse down here. I wonder if that works on the desktop. Yes, it does. Okay, yeah, you also couldn't personalize if you didn't activate, which I thought I did. Anyway. Doesn't really matter. This is back in the days of picture passwords, where you set a picture and then you log in using mouse clicks and movements, kind of like the pattern on Androids. And this is also an introduction to the pin feature. But anyway, let's take a look at privacy settings. Let apps use my name and account picture. I think that's okay. Let apps use my location. You know, I'll keep that off for now. I don't think I'm really doing anything that'll require my location in this video anyway. This is back when we had home group. If we do end up going over that, I might change my sharing settings, but for now, no. Oh, it can't even get updates at all, it looks like. Okay, in that case, fine, I'll turn it on. But at least it did allow you control over your Windows updates, like more control than Windows 10 did. So that's something I liked when I was on Windows 8. And then when I upgraded to Windows 10, I remember being so upset that I did not have that control. That was one of those things that picked at me and nagged at me that I absolutely hated when I switched to Windows 10. But anyway, I'll let that go check for updates while I go sign into my Microsoft account. Pardon me while I punch that in. Oh, okay, I guess I can't sign into my Microsoft account. But anyway, let's check on our Windows updates. It's still checking for updates. Oh, and if you wanted to close a program, you would drag your mouse up here, click and hold the mouse button, then drag the application down. I think that was probably people's main complaint about Windows 8, is that it was not very intuitive. Even from the start menu, like how do you get to your settings? Not very obvious when you look at it. You actually have to go up here, settings, change PC settings. But we got our start menu settings. Actually, what is administrative tools? Okay, like the various administrative applications. And for some reason my trackpad scrolling stopped working. That's perfect. I mean, one thing I don't particularly care for is this live tiles thing, but you could also turn it off by right-clicking and then clicking turn live tile off, similar to what you do with Windows 10, just in a different menu. And you could also uninstall an app by right-clicking and then clicking uninstall. And also, if you wanted to look at all your apps, you could also right-click an application and then click all apps on the right here, or you could actually right-click anywhere on the start menu and then click all apps. And if you want to get out of this, you have to right-click again and then click on all apps again. And this minus sign, if you click on that, that zooms things out into their individual groups. And if you right-clicked on a group, you could even name groups, like so. I'll just call this productivity. That's what I would see. And I could change the name by zooming out, right-clicking again, then clicking name group again. But anyway, we've got all our apps here, including Mail, Calendar, Internet Explorer, Store, People, Photos, Maps, SkyDrive, back when OneDrive was called SkyDrive, Messaging, Finance, Sport, Desktop, Weather, News, Bing, Travel, Games, Camera, Music, Video, and our administrative apps here, if you chose to enable them. And you could do a Windows search here for your apps. Anyway, let's take a look at the Microsoft Store, or rather the Windows Store. Okay, it says that there's a network problem, but back then it was actually called the Windows Store. Let me actually just try going to some other website, like my own YouTube channel, just to make sure that there isn't some other network problem. Okay, yeah, it seems to be loading. Like, I mean, this is straight out of 2012, so didn't really expect it to be able to load the website. This doesn't even support HTML5, which is needed on modern websites, including YouTube, but it works. Actually, my first task is going to be to go get a modern web browser, so let's do that. I'm going to go get Mozilla Firefox. Okay, so now it's complaining about the website security certificate, obviously. You know, I'm going to continue to this website, which you kind of have to do if you're using an old web browser, because all its security certificates are going to be just out of date. Okay, thankfully Mozilla's website does at least function on 2012 Internet Explorer. Let's continue to the website. Yes, run it. Okay, run it. Windows Smart Screen can't be reached right now. Maybe all the services that serviced Windows 8 are down, so I'm going to run anyway. I think Windows 8 is still supported. Let me go check up on that. Oh, actually no. Support for Windows 8 and 8.1 ended on January 10th of 2023. My apologies for not knowing sooner. This is what you get when you don't do your research. But anyway, yes, install this application. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use any of the online services. So this video is not going to be as in-depth as I hoped. Like, for example, other services like SkyDrive, or basically anything requiring a Microsoft account is not going to work, which kind of blows. But I think, like, once you got used to all the differences and quirks, you could get your work done on this. You cannot install Firefox. Okay, let's just start over. Maybe let's try this download, I guess. Okay, let's do, I guess, the 32-bit install. Maybe for some reason the 64-bit one doesn't work with this version of Windows. Oh god, I remember this annoying notification letting you know when an app was installed, even though I didn't think of it as annoying as a kid. But nowadays, I know better. Okay, let's set Firefox as the default browser. Yes, set Firefox as the default browser. I don't have anything from Internet Explorer, and I'm not going to even bother signing in. Okay, let's start browsing. Now we should be able to get on YouTube. There we go. Yeah, I think Internet Explorer worked great as a web browser downloader for Windows. That's pretty much all I ever used it as. Well, we used Google Chrome back then, but these days I use Firefox because privacy reasons. But I mean, it seems to be performing fine. I mean, if we scroll back here, Firefox is in our start menu. What happens if I disable administrative tools? Give that a second to update. Okay, so it still shows. But you know what? I'm gonna bring that back because I like having it there. And actually, these quick settings will change depending on what app you're in. So if you wanted to go to Control Panel, you'd go up to Settings and then click Control Panel, but that only works if you're on the desktop. And of course, this Control Panel was a lot more robust in the beginning of the modern Windows Settings app era, like well before a lot of this stuff was migrated over to the Windows Settings app. But anyway, I kind of want to go over this picture password. First of all, I need to confirm my regular password. I'm not going to go over PIN because I'm pretty sure you know what that is, since it's still on modern versions of Windows. Yeah, unfortunately I have no pictures on here. Alright, so now I've got some pictures on here. Let's choose something from here. Like for example this piano. I could drag the picture in any position I want. I want to capture more of the piano. And I can draw 3 gestures on the picture, like click and drag, or even just click. And then I'm gonna repeat those gestures. Perfect. And now, if I go back to the start menu and then sign out, I can either sign in with my picture password or just my regular password. I got sign in options here. So now I'm going to do that whole thing again. Click. Like that. There we go. Now it signs me in. I thought that was kind of cool, even if it wasn't the most secure sign-in method. And I should also mention that you could open up the start menu by hitting the start menu key, and trackpad scrolling is still not working. But anyway, you could move apps by dragging them like so, and you could even resize apps and make them smaller just for better organization, or even the reverse if you like. But anyway, another app that I want to see if it still works is the Mail app. Oh, I need a Microsoft account for that. So it only worked with Microsoft Mail, which is how I got my @live.com address that I had for a while. It's deleted now. But anyway, let's actually give this Bing app one last look. If you wanted a full screen web browser, I imagine you're not going to be able to get a whole lot out of it, but let's just see. I'm going to just look myself up. I mean, my name wasn't on. Oh, okay, that's kind of neat. You could just search here via Bing and then have it open up on your main web browser. So if you like to use Bing, which for the record did not include me, you could just get your searches done in here and then just look at them on your main web browser. But anyway, let me show you Windows Photos. There we go. Would show you your pictures from your pictures library, and also SkyDrive if you had a Microsoft account. And also this Photos live tile would show you your pictures from your Photos library. Before I close off this video, on Windows 8, unlike with Windows 10 and 11, if you have an unactivated copy and you try to set your desktop background using this method, it will apply that for a second and then switch straight back to the default. But anyway, with the omission of these other services that require Microsoft services which are no longer active, I would say that ends this video. Kind of disappointing, but I did what I could. And in conclusion, what do I think of Windows 8 now that I've revisited it after all these years? Well, I can understand how people had issues with it in terms of user-friendliness, which, looking at Windows 8 today, I would say that it was, to describe it in a sentence, anything but user-friendly. But once you've learned and gotten used to all the UX quirks, and there were many, it is an operating system that you could actually get things done on. Does it still have a lot of the same issues that made me switch off of Windows in the first place? Oh, definitely. Especially in terms of privacy and security, which security is even worse now that it's out of support and no longer getting updates. And it is definitely still a lot more maintenance compared to a Linux distribution. But there were a few of the more minor issues that didn't exist in Windows 8, at least not in the same way that they did in Windows 10. And I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion, but for example, Windows 8 did give you better control over your updates than Windows 10 and 11 does. I find that notifications are somewhat less intrusive with Windows 8, and I didn't really find any performance issues in my 2-core CPU, 8 gigabytes of RAM virtual machine, and I didn't really encounter any bugs in my short use of it. Well, unless you count the many UX quirks as being bugs. Now, before I close off this video, in case this video convinced you to install Windows 8 and actually use it as your daily driver, perhaps out of nostalgia or pity, please don't, because as I said, and just found out in the recording of this video, Microsoft ended their support of Windows 8 back in January 10th of 2023, which is just a few months ago at the time of shooting this video, which is why, while I was using it, not only was I not able to get updates, but pretty much anything that I tried to do that required a Microsoft account just would not work. So it's not a secure thing to do. And because a lot of the services that Windows 8 relied on are shut down now, it is a lot less usable these days compared to when it was still supported. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you don't agree with me, feel free to hit the dislike button. I know that doesn't really do much nowadays, but I'm sure it still does something. But if you like this video, please hit the like button, share this video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment.